The door problem.
The door problem.
The door problem.
Dang. It was the thing that took the longest to get right. What were we thinking?
I totally did not even realize there was a door there.
You have to consider every other situation, every other system.
Interactive doors were avoided entirely for the first few entries in the Assassin's Creed film.
Don't put doors in your games.
So, as you can see, I have some sort of interaction system working. The system was developed through C++ and blueprints. And the first step in actually tackling this problem was just getting the door to rotate. So in order to tackle this issue, I was like, okay, let's first look at how do we make a door rotate? And I wanted to do that in C++. So once I knew how to open a door, I went into doing research on how to create an interaction system. And that's basically because the way that it's set up now is that the C++ class, when it's read by the engine, what it's gonna do is when I press a button to open the door in C++, we need a way to tell the engine which instance of the door we want to rotate or open. So how do we tell the engine which door to open? There's a few ways to do this, two of which really stood out to me. One is using line trace to get an object that's in front of the character and say, this is the object I want to interact with. The second option is to use a trigger box and collision sweep. So once the player is inside a collision box, it says, okay, I'm in this collision box, let's interact with this item. So there's also a third bonus kind of way, but I've not done it, but it's definitely what I want to do. It's using line traces and trigger boxes. But I went with number two, just using a trigger box. In addition to this, I didn't want to just create an interaction system that only could interact with the door. I needed to make it modular so I can interact with anything in the world, say a door or another object that you can pick up. So in order to do that, I had to do research into interfaces, and we use an interface in order to talk and communicate between different classes. So essentially, the player would know that it's interacting with this specific object, and that object would know that it's interacting with my player. The other main issue I had was that my character was in full blueprints, and I wanted the code to do the math to open the door to be in C++. So I had an issue where it was, I needed my player to interact with the C++ class, but I also needed the C++ class to interact with the player. Because once the player stood in the trigger box, the C++ class would say, hey, you're interacting with me. And then the player knows, okay, I'm interacting with this object. Then when I press a button, then the math to execute opening the door is done in C++. So it was basically blueprint, C++ to blueprints to C++. And yeah, so let's take a look at the code, man. So door, we initialize it in C++, and we just basically set up the mesh and everything that we want to do from the editor side. So door frame and all that stuff is set up here. In begin play, we just make sure that they've been assigned in the editor. The boxes have been assigned in the editor, because I was getting a weird error where if I didn't do this check, it was just weird. Right, and then go quickly. So this is the overlap. So when the trigger box is overlapped, it basically says, okay, cool, which trigger box are you overlapped? Good, because I have two different animations for the door opening. One for an inwards and one for an outwards, because doors only open one way in real life. So I have a enum, which is basically set here, door direction, and if it's door front or door back, I would want the player to know, so it would do the specified animation. And then when overlaps ended, I set to no interaction, so you can't spam interact. So once you go back in the box again, it will be able to interact. You have to leave the box and then go back in. So this is where it gets funky. This is the interface that's created in C++ and then inherited in blueprints. And essentially, every actor will have this function, and this function is basically called from the blueprint side. So if I go here, if my player inherits, if you can see here, interface, and it inherits interaction interface, right? So it can see what's the ID, all this stuff. Definitely does need cleaning up, but for now it works, so I'm glad. So what this, okay, so for the player to actually know which object it's interacting with, it needs a reference to the specific actor from the blueprint side. So what we do here is, I think it's on the overlap. Yes, in overlap function, we actually have this function here, set as active interactable. And this literally gives a reference of this specific class, this class here, and sends it to the player. So then in the player, we can have a reference to the current interactable. Then this is just doing a quick valid check. If my player can interact, like for example, it's not dashing or attacking or in combat or anything, then cool. We can get the interactable type. So this is saying, okay, what am I actually interacting with? Is it a door or a key or anything else? Because there's going to be multiple objects to interact with in the game. So we do a switch, and this enum is created in a separate class here, enum item type. So this will just get bigger and bigger and bigger as the more different items that we have that are interactable. And then the interface just includes that header. And then, yes, we just get the interaction type here. And that's going to be in any of the other classes. Okay, so we do a switch. Is it a door or a key? If it's a door, okay, is it locked? Okay, and in the door function, we have, sorry, in the door class, we have a locked, no, actually, I include this in a, yeah, locked state. This is from another class. So this is the enum class, eDoor lock state. So if it's, okay, so then we get, okay, is it locked or unlocked? Oh, also we have
on the interact function, if it's locked, it will print this message and say the door is locked, right? So if the door is locked, you can't open it. And you can set this in dynamically in so if I bring this door out here, you can see it's locked or unlocked. And if it's locked, then you must give it an ID. So let's just say door 1. And if that's the case, then if you have a key, right? So let's duplicate this key, and we put this key here, and we say this key also has to have an ID of door 1. So what's gonna happen is, where did my key go? Let's pull this up here real quick. So this key has this serial ID, and this serial ID is going to be the same as the door. And if it's the same as the door, what's going to happen is in the blueprint function, so if it's locked, it will get the ID using the interface, and then I made a quick function called find key, and find key searches through the array of keys that you've picked up. So in order to get to that, let's go and look at the key function. So it's basically the same as the door. You use the interface to say, okay, I want to interact with this item. And then what I do is I get the string name or the F name of the key, which is a serial ID, and I add it to an array that's stored inside the character. So it's an array of basically just F names. Then I pick it up, and that's it, right? And then we destroy it. We remove it from the world because it's picked up. So then we do this function find key. It just for loops through the array. If the F name equals that, then we essentially just return and we say we have the key. Okay, so then we get the current interaction state of the door. So if the door, the current basically it's the current interaction state is just saying, okay, am I in front of the door or am I behind the door? So it's just a very simple if if else. So if we're in front of the door, interact. If not, then interact anyway, but play the other, right? Play the other montage, the other animation of opening. And we can see this here. So look, we have this animation, and we also have this animation. So it's two different animations depending on which side of the door you are in, because in real life doors only open one direction, right? So I thought it was just nice to have that feature in. Where am I going? Yeah, okay, and then we just output completed. If it's completed, we actually unlock the door permanently. So we don't need to, every time we try to open a door, we don't need to look at find key. There's no need, because we unlocked the door already, if that makes sense. So that's just kind of done here, unlocked. And actually, this could be changed to take a boolean. So could take a bool to set as locked. Could do that as well. But I mean, that's the gist of it so far. I do have other systems, so it's interesting to see how I stopped it from colliding with other systems, which is basically in the animation montage, I call lock movement, and I just disable input and I disable everything else. This is the pickup function for the key. But yeah, I think it's pretty much everything. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Okay, fade to black. This is awkward.